Over the past few weeks, I've been compiling a library of golf swings from the past, and it's been a lot of fun to analyze them and see what the commonalities are and see what has changed over the course of time. Now, in the early days back when they were playing with hickory shafts, I noticed a lot of really long golf swing, and I think that this is probably the case because those shafts were soft and they really didn't want to flex them hard to begin with. The other thing I noticed, their footwork and how good it actually was. You know, people talk about how they shifted their weight a lot more, and I actually would argue that point with people. So this first swing I'm showing is a player from about the turn of the 20th century, from about 1900. His name is Mcdonald Smith, and I want you to pay attention to his footwork and how beautiful it is. Now, he's kind of like Sam Snead before Sam Snead. Look at that beautiful pivot and how that left leg is angled away from the target. That's kind of what we're seeing in modern teaching. Now here we've got Harry Vardon, and his golf swing, is pretty restricted because of that Cody swinging in, but all in all, that's a pretty darn good swing. Now here we have Ted Ray. That's a pretty, kind of like a farmer swinging at it, but watch the way he pushes away from the golf ball with his legs. He really uses his legs to create some snap down at the bottom. Now, the famous Walter Hagen, he had kind of a unique swing, but look at that footwork and how he never really gets his hips outside of his feet. This is a beautiful swing of Bobby Jones. Now, he's one of my favorite swings to watch. You can see those real loosey-goosey wrists, and I think that was there again because of the equipment. He didn't want to stress that shaft too much. Look at that pivot. Look how these players are all finishing with their spine straight up and down for the most part. And look how that club shallows out and swings 90 degrees around his body. So the club's swinging perpendicular to his rotation. It's beautiful. Now, this is Horton Smith. This is another great player, the first Masters winner. Look at that pivot. Gene Sarazen, the inventor of the sand wedge. Look how that club swings 90 degrees to his rotation. Now we've kind of come on to the steel shaft, so golf swings are starting to shorten up a little bit. They're not quite so loosey-goosey. But look at that impact position. The famous Jimmy Demeret. Look at this beautiful action here. See how his left hip never gets outside of his left foot, and he finishes with his spine straight up and down. No stress. The famous Claude Harmon, Butch's dad. Look at that hand path. Look at Craig Wood, another Masters champion. Watch how his pivot drives that swing. That's a thing of beauty. This is Ralph Gouldall. He was famous for being a great driver. And watch that left hip. See how it pulls back? The famous Byron Nelson here. He had an interesting action, kind of lowered everything down into the ball. But look at that impact position. This is Lloyd Mangrum. It's an interesting action. You can really see how he pushes back away from the target and from the club swinging through. Here's Ben Hogan, the most copied swing of all. You can really see the same thing there with him, how he pushes back. He almost kicks back onto his back foot when he's going after one. And he had a little more lateral shift than most of these old-timers. But even still, his left hip never gets outside of his left foot, which allows him to keep rotating and finish straight up vertical. And you can really see that shaft lays down and swings 90 degrees to the rotation. Maybe my favorite swing of all, Sam Snead. Boy, he could really hit it. He's like a Cameron Champ of the past. Look at that. It looks very similar. What a beautiful motion. He had some major flexibility. And you can see his shoulders rotate 90 degrees to his spine. So his spine stays fairly flat. Now here's a good picture. You can really see that there's not a lot of lateral motion in that golf swing. It's more rotation. Bob Goalby, another Masters champion. Look at how this swing works around him. A lot of these swings look almost as Ben Hogan as Ben Hogan. A little different follow-through, but now Arnold Palmer. You can really see how that's a rotational action, and there's not a lot of tilt of his spine away from the target. Gary Player. Here's another one. You can really see how that pelvis works in through the shot. Another one of my favorite swings, Peter Thompson. Real simple. Another swing that's almost as Hogan as Hogan. You can see how beautiful that leg action is. Gay Brewer. Now this golf swing looks very reminiscent of one we're going to see at the end here. Beautiful swing. A little different up and across, but looks powerful. And Jack Nicklaus. Before he started tinkering with his golf swing, this was one of the best golf swings ever. Look at that swing. Look how his left leg posted up. It's gorgeous. Just looks so powerful. Now you're going to start to see a little bit of a different Jack Nicklaus. This is after he's thinned out a little bit, and in the 70s, you're going to see a lot more knee slide and more of a reverse C type finish. So now the club's not going to work 90 degrees to his spine anymore. It's working a lot more vertical. So his swing's driven more by arms, and because of that, he has to create some space by kind of leaning away. Now, here's Johnny Miller. You're going to see a big slide of the hips forward and a big reverse C. Here is Tom Weiskopf. Now, this is Ben Crenshaw. You can see, now you're starting to see a trend. We've gotten into the 70s, and you can see the difference in how everybody's moving. Tom Watson. You can see how his hips continue to slide forward and he arches his back. This is Mike Reid. This is a real exaggeration of that reverse C. He could hit it straight. Interesting swing. Seve Ballesteros. You can really see those hips fire forward. A lot of reverse C there. Again there. And part of the reason is that these guys are driving the swing more with their arms. So because of it, they have to make room. So they fire their hips forward and their heads back and kind of arch because they're driving it with their arms. Now here's Greg Norman. You'll really see that here. You can see how his swing is driven with his arms down first. And because of it, he has a lot of right side lateral bend, and his spine gets almost straight up and down. That looks like it's hard on your back. Another Greg Norman swing. You can really see how he's driving his hips forward, and then his arms are pulling really hard, so he's got to back out of it to be able to make a little space. Sandy Lyle, you'll see kind of similar action here. His arms drive, his shoulders get real steep. It was kind of the trend in the 70s and 80s. Payne Stewart, another similar one. The shaft's steeper, doesn't really work 90 degrees around his spine, and there's a lot of lateral slide in this golf swing. These guys can still play. It's just a little different timing. And to me, it looks like it would be more prone to injury. Colin Montgomery, you can really see it in his swing. A lot of arm drive, and he has to tilt back really hard at the end to give himself time to square that club up. Steve Elkington, another one that you'll see drive it with his arms, and because of it, he's got to give it a little tilt away to give himself time to square the face. So all the players that grew up watching Jack in the 70s started to copy this, or they were taught this. Fred Couples, another big drive of the hips. You can see his left hip gets up outside of his foot, nice arch in the back. And he suffered from back issues most of his career. And I would say a lot of it's because of that. Tiger Woods. Now when he first came on tour, his swing was very rotational, very beautiful naturally. and it stayed that way through the Harmon years. And you can see he had a little more slide to the left than I would like to see with his hips, but he never let the left hip get outside of his foot, and there was rotation as he was getting up there. So as he moved pressure, there was rotation. Now here, this is 2013, and you'll see he slides forward and he gets stuck, and you can really see it in that follow through. And here's what's happening. His left hip is getting too far forward, which tilts his spine back. And because he doesn't get the shaft standing up vertical like a lot of the players from the 70s and 80s, he tends to get under it and hit big pushes and hooks. Adam Scott, pretty darn good looking swing, driven a little bit more by arms than I would like to see, but you know, it's pretty darn good. He sinks it up nice, and we're starting to get to golf swings that are a little more pivot driven and a little closer to what was happening in the past. Now Jason Day, he's more of a swing reminiscent of some of the swings from the 80s. You can see he's really driving his arms, kind of like Greg Norman. Because of it, his head's backing out and his shoulders are getting real steep relative to his spine angle. And you'll see he's kind of backing out of it to give himself time to square it up. And it's all because he's really driving hard with the arms. So he's got to back out of it to give himself a little bit more time. And he's also had some issues with his back. Now Rory has a little more lateral movement that I like, but it's not so bad that it makes him stall and have to really arch. He's got a kind of a different move with his right shoulder where it is hunched up, but you can see his left hip doesn't get up outside of his foot, so his rotation doesn't get impeded too bad. Now here we are with Dustin Johnson. He's got a little bit freer hip turn like the old time guys, and you can see that club gets 90 degrees to his rotation, and the rotation is very unimpeded. And you'll see why here. You can see his left hip rotates, and there's always an angle back in that left leg. And you see he finishes straight up and down. And Justin Rose gets a little bit more stacked up on his left foot, but he doesn't reverse C like a lot of the old timers because he's not really driving his arms. He doesn't have to give himself time to catch it up. And Brooks Koepka, super powerful action here from a guy built more like a football player than a golfer. And Cameron Champ, this swing is, to me, is very reminiscent of Sam Snead. A lot of freedom in the way his hips turn and a beautiful rotation through the ball with no tension. It just looks effortless, and he hits the ball a mile. Watch how that rotation works. So there's not a lot of lateral slide. And here's Matt Wolf, very similar to Gabe Brewer. Look at that, almost identical. And he's currently the best college player in the country. So as you can see, what's old is now becoming popular again.